The man who trusted you the most is often the one who will destroy you first. Not the stranger, not the enemy standing across the battlefield. The friend, the ally, the one who smiled while planning your fall. 500 years ago, a quiet Italian diplomat watched kings, princes, and popes rise and collapse, and he wrote down the truth nobody wanted to hear. Not because he hated humanity, because he understood it better than anyone alive. And what he saw will make you look at every relationship in your life a little differently. We are taught to believe people are good. That loyalty is common. That kindness is rewarded. But the moment life tests you, the moment money, power, or fear enters the room, you see who people really are. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't write fantasies about how humans should behave. He wrote about how they actually behave when no one is watching, when nothing is guaranteed, when survival is on the line. And that difference between the mask and the face beneath it is where real wisdom begins. Here is the first brutal truth. People are loyal only as long as loyalty benefits them. Not because they are evil, because they are human. Machiavelli watched allies switch sides overnight, watched brothers betray brothers for land, watched entire cities cheer a ruler one week and demand his head the next. It wasn't chaos, it was pattern. The moment your usefulness ends, so does most people's affection. Painful? Yes, but once you accept it, you stop being shocked by betrayal, and you start protecting yourself before it happens. The second lesson cuts even deeper. Fear outlasts love, because love depends on the other person's mood, but fear depends on consequence. Think about it. How many people have disappointed someone who loved them unconditionally and felt nothing? Now think about how many people avoid crossing someone they respect and fear losing. Machiavelli never said fear was noble. He said it was reliable. Love can be manipulated, exhausted, or simply forgotten. But respect built on boundaries, real boundaries, rarely gets ignored. The lesson isn't to become cruel. It's to stop being so easy to walk over that people forget consequences exist. And this leads to something most people never admit to themselves. The third truth. Weakness invites cruelty. Not because the world is heartless, but because human nature is opportunistic. Show someone your full vulnerability too early, hand them every insecurity, beg for approval, and somewhere inside them, even the kindest person will start testing how far they can push you. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about understanding that self-respect is a language people read instantly. The moment you stop performing weakness, the mistreatment usually stops with it. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable, because the fourth lesson exposes something we don't like to admit about ourselves. Jealousy hides behind admiration. Machiavelli understood that the people who smile the widest at your success are sometimes the ones quietly wounded by it. Not everyone, but more than you think. It's not always loud. It's the friend who goes silent after your win, the colleague who jokes about your ambition, the relative who suddenly has advice you never asked for. You don't need to become paranoid. You need to become aware, because awareness is armor and ignorance is an open door. But here's the twist most people miss. Machiavelli didn't teach distrust because he hated people. He taught distrust as self-protection, not as an attack. There's a massive difference between being guarded and being bitter. A guarded person still loves, still builds, still connects, but they don't hand their entire future to someone else's character. A bitter person shuts everyone out and calls it wisdom. Machiavelli wasn't bitter. He was clear-eyed. And clarity, not cynicism, is the real weapon here. Which brings us to the fifth brutal truth. Silence is more powerful than explanation. Every time you explain yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you, you hand them ammunition. Every time you defend your decisions to those who never intended to respect them, you weaken your own position. Machiavelli watched rulers fall not because they made mistakes, but because they revealed too much, too soon, to people who didn't deserve the information. In real life, this looks simple. Not announcing your next move, not explaining every choice, not proving your worth to people who already decided not to see it. Silence isn't coldness. Silence is control. And control brings us to the sixth truth, maybe the hardest one to accept. Self-control is the only real power you'll ever have. Not money, not status, not other people's opinions, because everything external can be taken from you. Your job, your title, your reputation, even people you love. But your discipline, your composure, your ability to stay calm when everything around you is falling apart, that cannot be stolen. Machiavelli studied leaders who lost everything the moment their emotions controlled their decisions. Rage made them predictable. Desperation made them weak. The ones who survived weren't the strongest. They were the ones who mastered themselves before trying to master anything else. Now here is the final truth, the one that ties everything together, the one most people spend their whole life avoiding. People don't fear your strength. They fear your unpredictability when it's built on principle, not emotion. A person who reacts out of anger is easy to manipulate. A person who responds with calculated calm is impossible to control. That's the deepest layer of Machiavelli's philosophy. Not manipulation for its own sake, but mastery. Mastery over your emotions. Mastery over your silence. Mastery over who gets access to your trust, your time, your truth. So let's bring this back to your life, right now, today. How many people have you trusted simply because they were nice to you? How many times have you explained yourself to someone who never intended to understand? How many times have you mistaken loud loyalty for real loyalty, only to be blindsided later? This isn't about becoming someone cold or manipulative. It's about waking up. Machiavelli's world wasn't a fantasy. It's the same world you live in today, just with different clothes. Politics has become friendships. Kingdoms have become workplaces. Betrayal doesn't come with swords anymore. It comes with silence, gossip, and slow disappearance. The brutal truth is this: most people are not your enemies, but they are not your protectors either. They are simply responding to incentives, mood, insecurity, and self-interest, exactly like you do, whether you admit it or not. The moment you accept this, without bitterness, without fear, you stop being naive and you start becoming untouchable. Not because you trust no one, but because you finally trust yourself enough to see clearly. Machiavelli didn't teach cruelty. He taught clarity in a world addicted to illusion. He taught that love without boundaries becomes weakness, that trust without observation becomes danger, and that silence, self-control, and quiet confidence will always outlast noise, desperation, and emotional exposure. The people who master themselves are never truly powerless, even when they lose everything else. So the next time someone smiles a little too widely at your pain, or disappears the moment you succeed, or explains your intentions to you as if they know better than you do, remember this: you don't need to expose them. You don't need to attack them. You just need to see them clearly, calmly, without illusion. Because in the end, the world doesn't punish the people who understand human nature. It punishes the ones who refuse to. And once you see people as they truly are, not as you wish they were, you finally stop being surprised, stop being used, and start becoming the version of yourself that no one can shake. That is the final lesson Machiavelli left behind, hidden beneath centuries of misunderstanding. Power isn't about controlling others. It's about never again losing control of yourself.